Being with us. Hope we can say something that's encouraging and helpful to you. I'll be in the book of Genesis, the 22nd chapter. And it's a passage that you've no doubt looked at before. I haven't preached it here, but I've preached it before. I now see more there than I saw when I preached it before. That's an interesting point there. When you study a passage, whatever you learn is there. But don't assume that you've gotten all the way to the bottom of the passage, because circumstances may give you an opportunity to see more depth in that passage than you have already seen. Isn't it wonderful that God can write a book like that? A book that as I mature can become more aware and more deep as I mature and become more deep. I want to make a statement that I'm hoping that you don't forget. Don't know that you'll initially agree with, but you keep thinking about it. It flies in the face of a lot of what's being preached today. God didn't come to make life easier. He came to make you stronger and holier. Wow. I thought if I'd just be a good Christian, everything would get easier. Really? You read about the persecution in the book of Acts? Oh, I guess that kind of flies in the face of that. Have I read about the persecution in the book of Revelation? Oh, I guess that flies in the face of that. God never intended to make life easier. He intended to make you and me stronger and holier. I'll give you scriptures that'll support that. We'll look at it. Genesis 22. Now, the first time that I preached Genesis 22, I made no statement like that. The statement that I made was of the faith of Abraham. And I talked about faith, and the message is there. It's a lovely message on faith. And that was a valuable lesson to me and hopefully to those that heard. But there's a deeper message. God wasn't working to make Abraham's life easier. He was working to make him stronger and more holy. Boy, is that crucial, because you just got an explanation for everything that's happened to you that's negative. You just got the explanation for everything that's happened to you that you feel is negative. God's plan was to make you stronger and holier. God was working with you. Sometimes we say, well, God, why'd you let that happen? He said, oh, no, you've got the whole perspective wrong. I'm trying to make you stronger and holier. I'm trying to do you a favor. What kind of people would we be if everything good was all that happened to us? Well, we know what that'd be. We've seen people like that, at least on TV. Maybe we've met some. Spoiled brats that nobody wants to be around. Nothing has ever happened to them but that which is good. And that's what we think God ought to do for us. Make us spoiled brats that nobody would want to be with. Well, no, when you put it that way, that's not what I want. And that's what God says, and that's the way He's putting it. Watch this. Genesis 22. And it came to pass after these things that God did prove Abraham. If you have tempt, I'd mark a line through it and put James 1:13. God cannot tempt with evil. God tempts no man. God proves men, but He tempts no man. Oh, okay. I can understand that. I can believe that. I've heard that scripture. I see what we're talking about. God did prove Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac. Watch this, because God says that's Abraham's son. But the truth is, God owns more of that boy than does Abraham, proven by the fact of what God's going to do with him or tell him to do with him. Whom thou lovest. Abraham loved the boy. And get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering. God thought the boy was his. God loans us those that are about us. They're his. And He will prove it at the final breath. He will prove who owns. I understand that. Then God has loaned me the privilege of being particularly influential toward. Yeah, that's the proper perspective. God has loaned me the honor of having particular influence toward. But they're not mine, they're His, and He'll prove it time and again. But He'll definitely prove it at the last breath. Offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. Now you can find in Hebrews 11:17. That's the faith chapter. By faith, Abraham offered Isaac. What is faith? God talks. You trust Him, and therefore you do what He tells you to do. God spoke to Abraham. Abraham trusted Him, and therefore he was going to do what God told him to do. That's faith. Watch as he goes. And that's why Hebrews 11:17 uses it that way. But I want you to know all that he has to do. And Abraham rose up early in the morning. Wait a minute, why would you be in a hurry, Abraham? Because when my God talks, I plan on moving. And he saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son and clave the wood. Now this is a little bit before Still made a chainsaw. And so when he clave the wood, I'm not sure what that was, but I got a seeking suspicion in his work. And he's working. Well, that's what James uses Abraham to say that faith without works is dead. If I've going to believe in God, when I do what He tells me to do, James 2:23, then that means that I've got something to do. And faith without works is dead. So when He asks me to move, I'm going to move, and that's just faith. I'm not saved by works. I'm proving my faith when I move, when I work. Oh, okay. He clave the wood for the burnt offering and rose up and went into the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day, my, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the donkeys, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship. One of them as the offerer, the other one as the sacrifice, but we will both worship. And come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac. Isaac's carrying the wood that will burn him as a sacrifice. His son. And he took the fire in his hand and the knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father? And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham says, God will provide. And I began to see. It was a 3-day ride to the hill. I can't do anything but call that a 3-day ride to hell. I'm going to offer a boy that I love, and I'm going to have to think about it for 3 days. Generally, the pain of something like that is the thought. Way more. You know, in an emergency, many people become heroes. They just reacted quickly and they became a hero. But when you have to think about it for 3 days, how far was it up that hill? I got a feeling that Abraham thought it was a 30-day ride. He thought all along, could get nothing on his mind. How you been sleeping nights, Abraham? Not well. Not well. It's been agonizing trying to sleep. It's a 3-day ride into hell because he knows what he's going to do. And I see what he's thinking. I see what he's doing. And I see as he sets forth. He said, Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. Now I want to go back just for a minute. I want to lay credence to the fact that Hebrews 11 says by faith. James 2 says, without works there is no faith. So my faith has to do that which my Lord says needs done. Murder is wrong unless God says do it. And then it becomes right because you have a higher authority. And God told him. Now don't make something weird out of that statement. Because God's not talking directly to you and me today. He's talking through the book. And murder is wrong. But he's told that. And they came to the place which God had told him of. And I started counting here. He's already done things. I didn't count them. And Abraham built an altar there. What it looked like, I don't know. But he did something, and yet by faith Abraham was saved when he offered Isaac. He built an altar there. Number 2, he laid wood in order. I'm not certain I know what that means, but there's a way to put the wood together and it burns better than the other way. And bound, right about now I'm thinking Isaac, if he hadn't gotten it before, has gotten it crystal clear. Why do we need to tie me, Pop? And how's Abraham feeling right about now? Why would the boy not reject what the father wanted? And laid him on the altar upon the wood. That's 4. And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. There's at least 7 acts of obedience that would be called work. James 2. And yet Abraham is doing them And the angel of the Lord called upon him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. That's what he said in verse 1. Here am I. He said it again, verse 11. I'm listening. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him, for now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son from me. I know of your respect toward me, he says. And I say, Lord, you can't ask that much of me. That's more than I know that I can give. And you know what I hear him say to me? You can listen. I hear him say to me, Foy, did you ever read Galatians 2:20? Well, sure, Lord, I've read it. I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life that I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Was Abraham a guilty man? Guilty of what? There's nothing here that reflects his guilt. There's nothing here that reflects anything wrong with Abraham. Does God allow the innocent to suffer with the guilty? You better not talk about the cross if you don't believe the answer to that's yes. Because there's the most innocent of all of us that suffered with the guilty. You see the whole point of God. We don't get the big picture. The whole point of God is the salvation of mankind. And as the salvation of mankind, things are going to happen. Waters in Houston. Waters in Florida. Things are going to happen. But they're happening with a view toward redemption. God didn't come to condemn the world. He came to save the world. But he has to repetitively try to get your attention, my attention, because we become so complacent that we allow life to become of boredom rather than of the excitement and thrill of being Jehovah's man or Jehovah's woman in the face of this earth. Wow. And that's what God is wanting to communicate to me. And Abraham was proven of God. You know, it's the same story as Job. He said, Have you considered my servant Job, a man that feareth God and hateth iniquity? You know, I've often thought, what if my struggles, what if my heartache, what if all that was wrong was because God said to the devil, Have you considered my servant Foy? I guarantee you he won't turn away from me no matter what you do to him. You can do anything you want to except take his life. And Satan, being the big cowardly bully that he is, will beat on you and me to try to prove God wrong. That we will not stay faithful in the face of adversity. Wow. What a God we have. You know, it works great to tell the little 4-year-old boy who's afraid to go out in the dark, son, don't worry about it, God will go with you. But you know what? You get grown and you know that's not always true, don't you? That's a faith for little boys. And some of us still got that faith. The one that says, God will always take care of you. God is taking care of the redemption of the whole world. And you might be the innocent one that gets caught up in that which is for the salvation of the whole world, the best thing that can happen. I want to die that Jesus might live through me. But Jesus died vicariously. What if I get hurt vicariously? Oh, that's me being like Jesus. I don't holler and scream, Lord, I didn't deserve that. I say, Lord, if that which has happened to me is good for the salvation of others, then so be it. Wow, does that change everything about life? And yet we know that's the truth. What did Abraham do to deserve this? Nothing. What did Isaac do to deserve this? Nothing. Wow. But you know what? It's had an influence on the redemption of the world. Oh, you mean God was here working on the redemption of the world, and He had it written down so the world is yet reading the story to be redeemed, and the world is yet figuring out that if you believe, you've got to do some things that indicate your belief. And the world is beginning to understand faith and what it is, and it isn't just, I believe in Jesus. It means more than that. Wow. And it's still preaching. It's still preaching. And some innocent people have suffered vicariously for those who are guilty. Lord, I can live with suffering vicariously that others might be saved. I can live with dying to myself that others might be saved. I will accept your will, and I now want your will to be done. I look at that. You know what's happened there? I think Abraham has left for me, Isaac has left for me, frankly. And he's left me a model to follow. Man, we all need a model. We need a model. And he's left for me a model to follow. Oh, I read a story that meant a lot to me. Can't get it out of my head. I'm not complaining about that. I like the story. There was an old shepherd in a foreign land. He was very lonely because he lived alone and all he did was watch sheep. In the evenings, particularly in the cold winter evenings, the old shepherd would play his violin. And that's how he passed time. Now, this is in the day when radio was king. And he would play his violin and listen to the radio, and that was his evenings. And he worked 7 days a week. But his old violin had gotten a little off tune, and he wrote into the radio station and he said, "Could you please get somebody to play me an A so I can tune my violin?" And the station master thought that was a legitimate request. And he advertised it a while and said at a certain time, we're going to strike an A and we're going to hold it. Ooh, the value of a model. And the old man tuned his violin. Wow. God's revealed to me Jesus, that I can strike an A and hold it. And I can put my life in tune with my master. God has struck the A by Abraham, by Isaac, by men that have died that Jesus might live through them. And I hear that, eh? And now my 3-day ride to hell will not be that. It will be my 3-day ride of vicarious discomfort, that men through me might have a model. Wow, what a different perspective. I read another story once that I don't know how well I tell the story, but it meant a lot to me. See if I can tell it to you, and hopefully it means something to you. There were many baby souls in heaven. Many baby souls. One there representing you. One there representing me. Many baby souls. And God called them together. Now, because they're in heaven, they're in a condition of innocence. And they're in a very pleasant place. And God said to the baby souls, I need some volunteers. There wasn't one of them that didn't raise his hand. We volunteer. He said, I need some of you to be born into the world, and I want you to be fairly affluent people. And I want you to use your affluency, and I want you to use your intellect. I want you to use what I put you on earth to do to some way glorify me and live for me. But there's others of you that I want to put on earth. And I'm going to put you in bodies that at birth were only half formed. Oh. And some of you will be so racked with pain that you will hope that your life is not long. And I want to put you on earth. And not a one of us that had raised our hands took our hands down because we wanted to serve our God. And we didn't care if it was in pain. We didn't care if it was a half-formed body. We didn't care if it was affluence. We only cared that we had the privilege to serve our God. Ooh. I'm beginning to understand a faith for grown-ups. A faith for grown-ups. And I was born in the world, somewhere between here and there. And God said, I want you to glorify me with that which I've given you. Don't want more. Don't want less. Do want that you glorify me through that which I've given you. Do want that. And apply yourselves to glorifying me with that which I've given you. I love that. I like the fact it reminds me of an old Kenny Rogers song. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money while you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. I want to play the hand that my God dealt me better than any man has ever played this hand under the same cards before me. To me, that's what God's saying to you and me. He's saying, don't spend any time worrying about which cards you dealt. Spend your time wanting to play the hand that I've dealt you. Wow. Whole new perspective to life. A whole new understanding about living. And now I see the things where God's trying to wake me up. And I say, did it wake me up? Lord, did it wake me up? Is there any way I can use that which happened to wake up other men? Can I use that advantageously? Abraham and still standing there arguing about, why does this have to happen to me? You know, Abraham loved that boy. It says that. And you know what? God had kind of isolated Abraham. Genesis 12, Abraham had to go to a strange land. And that's not easy in itself. And then we saw that Abraham lost the boy, had to send him away that was most like him. Ishmael, he had to send him away. And now we're to the one that isn't really much like him. And now he's going up the mountain to kill him. But God told me to do it. It will be done. It's my job to do what my God wants. It's God's job to take care of the rest of it. Make a commitment that says, I want to be God's man. I want to be God's woman. And I'm not going to be afraid of what the outcome will be. I've heard God. I trust God. Thus I will obey God. Yeah, the Bible talks a little deep sometimes. And my God is asking for a commitment from me that goes more deeply than maybe I'd realized when I first began. Lord, I didn't know you were going to ask for this. He said, oh, that was because of the shallowness of your knowledge. Now you know, and I'm asking for this. If we can be of any help, let us know as together we stand and sing.